James T. Kirk, a whole bunch of different work. Anyway, but the point so to answer the question, I'm interested in taking up this position that Kurzban takes up, but it's from this very specific kind of historical position, right? Because my field of study, I'm interested in performance studies and art history and poetry, but if anybody asks me what my actual sort of field of study is, it would be, I would say, without hesitation, Black studies. And part of what it is that is the purview of Black studies is precisely this long, extended investigation of these complicated sort of interstitial spaces in which personhood merges into thingliness, in which personhood merges into objecthood, like in Piper's work, for instance, in which personhood merges into the machinic. Like the reason why I'm talking about, y'all know who Alan Turing is? He's, one of the key figures in the history of modern computation. And if you go back to the 19th century, however, and sort of study a little bit, which I only know a little bit about it, the early history of computing, the key figure in Britain is a guy named Charles Babbage, who creates two massive machines. So you can still see one of them in a museum in London. One's called the difference engine. I'm spacing out on the second one. But if you, basically what Babbage was attempting to do is to figure out a way to use mechanical instruments and large machines that would be able to do quickly and more accurately and more efficiently the work that individual humans had to do, for instance, in calculating tides. This was very important for business, very important for Britain as an emerging mercantile power. They had to know how to actually get to India to get the stuff that they were stealing, or get to, you needed to be able to know how to transfer human cargo from, the Gold Coast to Jamaica, right? And lots of money and lots of potential profit was lost because of the imprecision of human calculators. And the people who were doing that calculational work were actually called computers. So this sort of little accidental historical pun was like a clue for me, right? That's one of those places where the line that we ordinarily think of as hard and fast between the human and the machinic breaks down. Okay? So basically, one way to think about the history of, one way to think about the Atlantic slave trade and the African diaspora is that it was this large-scale political economic regime which had as one of its most fundamental features a kind of massive capacity to interdict the possible selfhood of the people who were caught up in that machine. You understand? That it was simply not to be taken for granted that a woman from Nigeria who was captured and put on a slave ship in 1784 would have access to anything like what we would call a self. And then the question becomes, in the absence of, first and foremost, the assumption of the people who are around you that you are and have a self, as well as in the absence of the kinds of juridical and governmental guarantees that allow us to confidently walk up and down the street talking about me, myself. We have police forces and legislatures and rules and laws, all of which are there to guarantee on a juridical level that we can act, that we can sort of, confidently think of ourselves as selves. In the absence of all that apparatus, how is it that personhood is lived? Right? Okay. So you see what I'm trying to get at? When this guy Kurzban says, oh, you don't need a self for what it is that the brain does, my first impulse is to go, yeah, but you do need a self. You do need something, some kind of, not so much an executive function, but some sort of spiritual, immaterial thing that allows these heuristic devices and neurons and so forth to coalesce, right? So So in a kind of Cartesian way, I'm thinking through this. But what I'm really thinking is, no, but this guy Kurzban is kind of cool because he gives us a language with which we can investigate what it might be to be a person, but to not be a self. And part of what I'm really getting at is I'm really wary of selves. Because it turns out that some selves do bad things.